So we're going to move to game 2.
That's a little bit of a hasty. I'm wondering if he had one more draw to work with there.
He probably did. The problem being that an active Inferno Titan wasn't going to...
Sure.
He wasn't going to be able to beat an active Inferno Titan even if he drew Zealous Conscripts.
Well, the problem was that he'd have to kill the active Inferno Titan. He'd have to hold up all his mana to Wolf Run on defense. But with double Huntmaster, you don't want to just say go.
Yeah.
I think Evan was going to flip the Huntmasters for Hetrick there, and at that point he really can't win the match of the game.
So out of the sideboard for Evan, I imagine we're going to bring in these extra Wolfer Silver Hearts.
How many extra does he have?
2.
Definitely. Both players will try to go as big as possible.
He also has Bonfire of the Damned in the sideboard. Those will almost certainly come in.
So,
he has a couple other interesting options, like Zealous Conscripts, another one, which is a possibility. Although, I mean, he saw the Inferno Titan. It's possible that he could put Michael on a 7-drop. Unlikely, but...
Wagpod typically does not have a 7-drop. He already has 1 Conscripts in the main to pod for. I'm not sure that the extra ones are typically for the ramp style matchups. I wouldn't imagine he doesn't bring in the extra ones.
It's nice to just naturally draw one too.
Right.
And he also has 3 Sword of War and Peace. It's possible that the equipment would do something in this matchup. It would be much better if they were Feast and Famines in this particular matchup.
Right. Or actually Body and Mind in this.
Well, sure, Body and Mind would be the best one ever if it didn't put 10 cards in your opponent's graveyard.
Right.
It's just the worst possible thing you can do in Standard. But I think that those are it's probably the Bonfires and the Silver Hearts coming in and just trying to get big, taking out the 3 Thalias and maybe a Borderland Ranger.
Sure, Borderland Ranger is really not a very relevant body in this matchup, which kind of makes it more like a land grant card. Yeah. It's a good thing to chain up with still if you have a pod, but you probably want more value on your creatures. On Hetrick's side, he does have, I think for sure he has 1 Stinger Fling Spider, which will almost certainly get boarded into. He also has a Hound of Gristlebrand in his sideboard.
Wow.
For a reminder of you, that's the 2/2 red double strike creature with Undying. I would actually imagine that we'll see that come in.
Yes, especially in a matchup where he knows that Evan doesn't have much or any elimination.
Right. That card is very good at combat, and this matchup is about creatures that win in combat.
And also he can live the dream of potting the Hound of Gristlebrand, making it undie, and going and getting a Wolfer Silver Heart to deal 100 million damage.
So he also has 3 Arc Trails and a Consecrated Sphinx.
The Arc Trails would certainly come in.
Arc Trails certainly come in. You can really, not like I said, that the ability to early on KO your opponent out of the game is very, very powerful. An interesting part in the Hetrick sideboard, I don't think he'll be doing this in this matchup. But I was talking to him earlier, against lots of the control decks, he's been boarding out all his Huntmaster of the Fells in favor. He has 3 Hell Riders in the sideboard, and that's a plan which he's been going at a lot this weekend.
I would like to point out, it's not going to be very relevant unless we see a very interesting sideboard out of Michael, but since we've seen it, we certainly won't. Evan has 4 Cavern of Souls in his deck, which is very interesting considering the varied creature types: bird, human, spirit. What else we got here? Angel, wolf. So we've got quite a few different. It's pretty much just a mana fixer at that point.
A lot of the cards in Evan's deck don't cost double mana symbols. So for those of you who played a lot of Cube or something, you can probably remember the card like Tendo Ice Bridge, which is like a very fun, for those who don't know, it taps for colorless, comes into play with 1 counter, so you get 1 shot of any color mana. After that, it's colorless.
Right. It's a vivid land that comes into play untapped with 1 counter.
With 1 counter. So Evan, I think, in a lot of ways, is using Cavern of Souls like you would use a Tendo Ice Bridge.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, well, I have this, I have this wolf in my hand. I need a green, and he'll just cast it naming wolf.
Right, and occasionally he'll play it on human for Blade Splicer, Huntmaster, Zealous Conscripts.
Yeah, he may get a second shot out of it. But I don't think the expectation when you're playing that is that you'll get 1 shot, and that's probably fine.
Evan has 7 colorless lands in his deck. He has 4 caverns and the 3 one-ofs.
Sure. We all with the birds he has and everything else being a dual land, the color commitments of his deck actually aren't that straining. So you can probably get away with that.
Agreed. So I think that Evan, on the play, would most like to have a hand that has a Bird of Paradise, or an Avacyn's Pilgrim, and a Garruk. I think Garruk is the card that he wants most out of his main deck. Sure, Blade Splicer, Huntmaster, like the other cards in his pod are all very good in his deck. I think Garrick can actually take over a game in this matchup.
Sure, I mean, I'm not sure about taking over a game, but Garrick is a very good card to have. It can really put him ahead.
Yeah.
A flipped Garrick can take over the game. Still, even in a matchup, like, flipping Garrick is really ambitious. He's very hard to flip. If I were to say a card that I would think Evan's really going to try to bank on here, I would go with Bonfire of the Damned. After the board, that, as we saw in that last game, we made the comment at one point, if Hetrick had drawn his one main deck Bonfire, that would have basically ended the game. Even in your hand, as opposed to miracling it. I mean, miracling it obviously is the best situation, but...
so do you think Evan would want a copy of Bonfire in his opener?
I would take it, for sure. It's an Arc Trail in your opener, and it's so much better when it's not in your opener.
There's a Garrick. 1 land, it looks like. Nope, 2 lands. I see a Razor Verge Thicket.
If there's a mana creature in here, I can't imagine him sending it back. But watch out, Hetrick does have the Arc Trail.
Does not have a mana creature, though. Michael does, it seems. Llanowar Elf from Michael, passing back.
Yep, he had to make the choice between birds and elf. Hetrick, it looks like, did keep a 1-lander. Evan, no plays on the first 2 turns. However, 2 lands, which is better than what Michael has. Hetrick kept a 1-lander. He does have a Borderland Ranger in his hand, so it wasn't as risky of a 1-land hand. So here, Hetrick has to hope that he doesn't get bonfired for 1.
Yeah.
Which it looks like he's not going to just Blade Splicer. So
which is pretty lucky for Michael.
Yeah, they could have had a very quick game there. He does have a pair of Strangleroot Geists. He could make both of them, or he could go for his Borderland Ranger.
I think the Borderland Ranger is a much better choice, considering Fate First Striking Golem on the other side of the board.
It looks like Hetrick has Bonfire and Arc Trail both in his hand.
There's the Borderland Ranger from Michael. Borderland Ranger is a classic. Well, not really a classic, but it's a staple. Let's say.
Sure.
It's a 2/2 for 2 colorless and a green common, and I think it has the best art in Avacyn Restored. I'm a big fan of the art for Borderland Ranger.
I do really like the art for it. That's true.
Where it's just he's like leading you through the woods with his machete. It searches your library for a basic land and puts it in your hand.
Was it Civic Wayfinder was the first print of that card?
Yeah.
But that one's an elf.
That is an elf. Evan has several options here. It looks like he has a Metamorph. Is that first card? It's kind of shiny. I can't really tell.
Maybe a Metamorph then. The promo Metamorphs are pretty popular.
Yep. Nope, it's a Gavany Township. I lied. So he's going to play Garrick. This Garrick is likely going to eat the bird.
So he doesn't want it flipped yet.
Does not want it flipped yet, so he can theoretically take down some other...
more importantly, it's kept Hetrick off of red mana.
Yes. Michael now playing a mono green deck, although he does have 2 more Strangleroot Geists, do I see?
1, I'm not sure. I don't know what the other card is. I think it may not be. No, yeah, it does look like it's another Strangleroot Geist.
So, the mono green plan now being the only choice for Michael.
Yeah, if he made both Strangleroot Geists and swings everything at Garrick, he can take down Garrick. Yeah, and I assume that all of these creatures are heading at the Planeswalker.
That's what it looks like by the positioning on the board.
Hetrick is going to be in a rough spot here if he can't get a red mana.
So, would you block one of the Strangleroot Geists with a Blade Splicer itself, or just the one?
I like what he did, blocking the Borderland Ranger and then letting Garrick go down.
Yeah. That's what we assumed.
It gives him fewer potting options if he draws a pot as well. Alright, so Evan... really, with the Gavany Township in play, just has to survive. So kind of what I was saying before, if Hetrick doesn't get the red mana source, I can't see Evan really having too much trouble with this game.
It looks like Michael has the Inferno Titan in hand again, also.
Yep. You know, Huntmaster here, and then if he just can get another land, next turn he'll activate Township and flip Huntmaster, and that'll probably put him far enough ahead.
Yeah, both players, not really, well, Michael needs a land. Evan does not quote-unquote need a land, but if Michael does not get a land here, he's not playing a spell this turn.
It's a land, yeah. He's going to flip the Huntmaster for Evan, which this is pretty bad news for Hetrick.
Huntmaster is going to take down a Llanowar Elf, keeping him off the mana. So even if Michael gets a red mana, he will not be able to cast a 6.
Hetrick drops 18 off the Huntmaster trigger. And yeah, he's... That Garruk killing the birds there was... I mean, one of the plays here is Hetrick's got to be thinking, was it correct to borderland up the second forest? It did let him kill the Garruk that turn, whereas the other play would not have. So that was pretty important. At the same time, I think his lack of red mana is becoming the story of this game.
Absolutely.
Especially because the single red gave him access to Arc Trail. My guess is that he wanted a mountain there.
Evan plays a Borderland Ranger of his own. He has a Bird of Paradise in his hand. I imagine that's going to... Yep, there it is. Oh, he's also going to play an Avacyn's Pilgrim. This is going to reflip the Huntmaster.
Yep. He's playing the extra spell because he doesn't really... At this point, he just wants fodder out there for what's going to be a Gavany Township activation to flip next turn.
And then Michael... If he doesn't draw a land here,
I imagine we'll see. We're going to see a concession out from Michael.
A concession there. Evan with an overwhelming board state, and Michael with not anything to do. We'll send both players back to the sideboards for Game 3.
So not much of many of the sideboard cards showing their face there.
Yeah, we've yet to see a bonfire of any sort.
Yeah, well, there was one in Hetrick's hand, but he stranded it with his Borderland Ranger play.
Right.
One of the dangers to fall into is Strangleroot Geist is one of the most powerful cards in this deck. It's one of the best reasons to play pod-based decks, but actually is not one of the stronger cards in the mirror. It really just, it gets outclassed very early and ends up not being as relevant.
Right, well, Evan only has 1 in his deck, whereas Michael has the full set of 4,
Michael has 4. That's correct.
Strangleroot Geist is a major part of what the old pod decks, which were you wanted to have 4 Strangleroot Geist, 4 Blade Splicer, 4 Huntmaster of the Fells to put on maximum pressure on the Delver decks. But now Delver decks have the Restoration Angel, and so Strangleroot Geist gets quickly outclassed.
Right, and
so you want your own Restoration Angels, and things have to get cut.
Mm-hmm. Strangleroot Geist is still very good against Delver, to be fair. It's still very good in other matchups, but just, here, you know, sometimes the pod decks do a really good mono-green impression, and that's not the kind of hand you'd like in these matchups. The colored cards will really put you over the top. Remember, both these players at X and 1, we're probably looking at, so within the kind of numbers we have here, an off-the-cuff guess is that players will need to get to a record of 12 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw or better. Most of those records should probably be good enough for a top 8 finish.
I believe that X3-1 was similar to the last Invitational.
Right. I would imagine that every X3-1 should be able to be in top 8, and possibly an X4 or 2. So both these players at X1, meaning that they're hoping to finish today with 5 wins out of the 8 rounds. And obviously a win to start the day would really, not only, sometimes especially wins earlier on in a tournament really can help here. They somewhat count for extra because of what they'll end up doing to your tiebreakers as you move on.
Yes. And Evan had okay tiebreakers. Well, not really. He actually had the second worst of the 21 pointers tiebreakers behind Brian Boss, Jerry Thompson, Brian Braun-Duin, Alian Shrazi, and Ronnie Rittner, and only in front of Dustin Taylor. So he actually does not have great tiebreakers. He must have gotten a relatively early loss as his one loss yesterday. Right. Likely around round 3.
Something like that, around 2, 3, somewhere in the standard would be my guess.
Yeah.
This is Michael Hetrick's second round in a row on camera. As we saw, he and Shaheen Sarani battled in Legacy as our 2 undefeated players yesterday in round 8.
Yep, and they battled to a draw last night. I heard a funny story from someone who was watching the match from birding the rail. That Michael was very ahead on board position at the end of that match and asked Shaheen for the concession. Shaheen said, "You know what? I normally would, but it's too big of a tournament, too much money, and it's if it was F&M, I would have done it." And Michael allegedly said, "Well, it is Friday," which I thought was very good. So both players having fun. Both players knew that they were in good position regardless.
Yeah. Looks like Evan is taking a mulligan here.
Yeah, mulligan on the play.
He's on the draw.
Or I'm sorry, on the draw. My fault. Michael kept his 7.
The 6 for Evan seems okay. It has lands and spells.
It has a Cavern of Souls as one of its lands. It also has a Razor Verge Thicket.
Yeah, that second land makes the cavern pretty good. What the danger of caverns is if you got a all cavern.
He's not going to keep it. It didn't look like it had anything he could cast.
That's fair. So Evan Wagstaff going to 5 cards here. As long as Hetrick can progress his game plan, basically if Hetrick can maintain having a good mixture of lands and spells, or really just a good set of lands, we should be able to see him.
Sure. Yeah, I think on 5, I would probably keep 4 lands, 1 spell.
Yes.
Pretty much regardless of spell. It's risky, but your options are limited in the pod-on-pod matchup when you have fewer cards at your disposal.
The deck can in this matchup, they're not terrible on a mull to 5. Lots of times we'll notice in these games the players have ended the games with extra cards in their hand.
Yes.
Which kind of is the implication that you don't need all your cards to win a game as long as the cards you do have are the right cards. Granted, with 5 cards, you're kind of on the edge where every card has to matter, but if Evan would like to see actually, what you're saying, a 4-land, 1-spell hand, that would be pretty good, as long as the spell is something like, if he can get his first cards to just be like a Blade Splicer, if he can curve a Blade Splicer into a Hunt Master and just the lands to do it, that's pretty good. This double
He's going to keep here.
The double Arc Trail in Hetrick's hand,
it looks like Evan has 1 land. He might have 2.
And Hetrick has once again kept a 1-lander.
But all of the mana bugs.
All the mana creatures. The question is, does Evan have a bonfire this time?
He may.
There's something red in his hand.
There's one thing red in his hand. Michael draws his 2nd forest. Able to play a 5-drop this turn if he so chooses.
And he's going to Arc Trail.
Yeah, he's going to Arc Trail.
Yeah.
Putting Evan to 18.
And getting Birthing Pod on the table. That play much better than the Strangleroot Geist play.
Yes.
It can really... He really wants to start burying Evan here. And remember, Evan does have the bonfire in his hand.
He can bonfire for 1 next turn?
Yes, which, will really put them both on a mull to 5.
Yes. Well, Michael can pod away one of these animals if he so chooses.
Right.
Most likely to go get another Strangleroot Geist, making bonfire not nearly as good of an option.
Hetrick doesn't know. He probably will assume that Evan has some sort of bonfire card in his deck. My Hetrick also has the possible play.
He has another Arc Trail.
He has another Arc Trail, so the birds will probably also get taken down here. But yeah, if he can pot away one of his, pot away a bird into a Strangleroot Geist is a very good play here. He could basically cast his entire hand, or he could acidic slime.
Wow,
a fairly strong play. The good part about getting the slime in play is that even then, even if he gets bonfired for all his mana creatures, he can then pod the slime into an Inferno
Titan, and then be so far ahead that there would be no coming back at that point.
Right. I can't see that Hetrick's going to come up with a play other than casting an acidic slime here. He does.
He is.
Okay.
So he's going to cast the Strangleroot Geist, pod it away into.
He has an option of Ether Adept, which he may have kept in, or Daybreak Ranger, would be my guess.
Looks like he's going to do Daybreak Ranger because he's pulled a mountain out.
Yeah, I think he's going to... Or no, Borderland Ranger then.
Or Borderland Ranger, sorry.
I think he's going to punch himself a little bit after this turn. Well
now
maybe he's going to
Arc
Arc Trail the bird.
Evan down to 16, and then down to 13 from the Strangleroot attack.
Yep.
Now, if Evan is able to top deck a
Untapped
red mana,
has to be an untapped.
untapped red. His untapped red sources are 1 Mountain, 4 Copperline Gorge, and 1 Rootbound Crag.
Because Cavern of Souls doesn't count here.
Looks like it was a mountain. So he does have it.
Oh, he's got to go for it then. Well, the problem is that the active pod is still far too much.
Yeah. It still seems like the best option.
Definitely.
Bonfire of the Damned takes out mana creatures, leaving Michael with just a 3/2 and a 2/2 and a Birthing Pod.
Hetrick will drop to 17 off that.
Yep.
So the Acidic Slime kind of stranded now in Michael's hand.
As is the other Adept that he top decked. Michael's still ahead on board. And he has things to do because he does still have the Birthing Pod, so he can turn this Borderland Ranger into a Huntmaster of the Fells.
Yeah, which I think that's the play we'll see. Drop 7 to 8.
Yep. Michael getting
Hound of
Gristlebrand. Once again, Hound of Gristlebrand, a mythic rare from Avacyn.
Just a
it
regular
is just a
rare.
regular?
Just a regular rare.
Man, that card's so good. Anyway, it's just a regular rare, apparently.
Yeah.
2/2 for 2 colorless, 2 red. I believe it's an elemental hound.
It is an elemental. It is a puppy. It's
And
a
it
Hound of
has double
Gristlebrand.
strike and undying. There he is. Man, just a regular rare.
Yeah, I know. If you draft enough, you get to see this guy a lot more often than a mythic rare, and he's very hard to kill. There's Pillar of Flame in the set, and that's about it.
That's right. There's Pillar Flame. That's about it. So only a measly little Avacyn's Pilgrim from Evan.
Hetrick draws a Huntmaster of the Fells. Still does not have the 4th mana.
So what's likely going to happen here is attacks are going to come in, putting Evan to 1.
Yeah, putting Evan. Let's see.
Or he can pod away.
What his other option is, he can pod his own Hound of Gristlebrand into a Zealous Conscripts, giving his Undying Hound of Gristlebrand haste.
Nice.
And then swinging the team, which will actually then kill spell the Avacyn's Pilgrim if he does that.
That seems like a much better option.
It looks like, I think Hetrick's going for that.
Wolfer Silverheart, another option.
Yep.
But he probably would have attacked first had he done that. Yep, it's the Zealous Conscripts.
Conscripts will
coming in.
Hound haste.
Oh, it's going to give the Birthing, going to untap the Birthing Pod.
Oh my, and that's okay. Well, that's better than all of the options.
He's going to come in.
He's going to and Evan's going to have to block here because there's the chance he can pod away the conscripts into an Inferno Titan for 3 damage.
Yep. Now, he did that without. He did not search for the Inferno Titan pre-combat.
No.
To take down the.
Because the Hound doesn't have haste at this point.
I see. Michael will go to 15. Not terribly relevant. It's going to go get the Inferno Titan most likely, possibly Consecrated Sphinx, but most likely.
I don't even know if the Sphinx to be is in. Yeah, and that puts Evan to 2.
That's
Evan's going to draw the card. Concession.
Michael Hetrick will move on to 8/01. Evan Wagstaff's going to fall to 6/2.
Right. So as we said before, looking at X3-1 making a top 8.
7/2.
Yeah, 7/2. Hetrick then needs to probably go 4-3 in his remaining 7 rounds. Off to a strong start today.
Yes.
So he's now 5-0 with his Rug Pod deck.
Evan Wagstaff still in very